Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Welcome to College Football Rundown, everybody. I'm Glenn Shaw alongside Jeremy Smith here for this 2015 college football season, as it has already kicked off due to fall camp a couple of weeks ago. All the teams started practicing for fall camp and kind of getting into that rut as to who is going to be the starter, who's going to be the big-time playmakers. Jeremy, who sticks out to you in the West Division right now?
To me, I picked Alabama to win the entire SEC, and I'm sticking with that. I really think Alabama, despite only having 4 returning starters on the offensive side of the ball, really feel like that they're going to be just fine. Although we don't really for sure know who that starting quarterback is going to be, although I do feel like Jacob Coker, the senior, will wind up winning that job. I feel like Alabama is the one that sticks out to me. One of my, really a sleeper to me, I actually considered picking them to win the SEC West is Texas A&M. Really think John Chavis, that hire over there, was really, really good, really, really big for that program. Never had a problem on offense. It was always the defensive side of the ball that they had an issue with. Well, they hired one of the best defensive coaches that they could hire, so it's definitely going to get better for them.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the Auburn Tigers. I have them winning the West and why not? You get Will Muschamp coming over from Florida, a big-time defensive coordinator, his second stint at being a defensive coordinator, of course, prior to being in Texas. I think he's going to do some big things there, and they've got some playmakers on defense that can really make a big impact. He brings the energy. He brings the hype that defense really swarms around him. But another team for me in the West that really sticks out is Arkansas. What can Brett Bielema do this year? Alex Collins, one of the big-time running backs returning. The offensive line, a big-time part of that. Probably one of the best offensive lines in the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
And then Brandon Allen. Can he build off what he did last year? 25 touchdown passes, only 9 interceptions. That's a pretty good statistic, Jeremy, in my book.
Oh, absolutely. If you can manage a game, and then behind that, like I said, the biggest offensive line, it's an NFL offensive line. It's that good and it's that big. Absolutely. If he can manage the game with those running backs and those tight ends that he has to his disposal, Arkansas are going to have a good year. But they go through that grueling SEC West schedule, and that's not easy for anybody.
No, and can they win games on the road? They had that issue last year, so we'll wait and see. Les Miles, a guy down at LSU, a lot of the fans are kind of starting to rumble about what's going on there. You would think a lot of teams would love these 8-win seasons. Not the LSU fans. They're being a little disappointed, and rightfully so. The talent there is tremendous. What does Les Miles have to do this year after losing John Chavis, welcoming Kevin Steele, the new defensive coordinator? What do they have to do to win those fans back? Do they have to win an SEC championship?
I really think they have to get back there at least, get back to Atlanta and really compete in the West. Last year, they weren't even in contention to win that Western Division. And they have to make it hard for opponents to come down to Baton Rouge. You used to never want to go down to Baton Rouge and play a game, especially at night, really at any time. But now Baton Rouge, down there at LSU, is not as scary of a place to play the last 2 or 3 years as it used to be. They've got to make it scarier for opponents to come in there. That's when they'll get that program back to where it needed to go.
And again, LSU has a daunting task at doing that. They have to go to Alabama next year, or this year, excuse me. So look for that game to be a big game for them as well. Mississippi State, we'll talk more about them. Dak Prescott's coming back. He does have some talent around him at receiver. Defensively, I think, is the question mark for Dan Mullins. Manny Diaz, the new defensive coordinator, they're coming from Louisiana Tech. They led the interceptions last year at Louisiana Tech with 26 interceptions last year, which is pretty impressive. But this defense last year was very, very bad, to say the least, for Mississippi State. They gave over 400 yards in 7 of their games. What do they have to do to maybe put a hole in that and be a lot better and more efficient?
Well, they just have to really fill their gaps. They can't, be going for. They were letting up way too many big plays. They were really relying on that offense. They were relying too much on Dak Prescott to really just win the game for them. They were having to hope to get into the 30s and 40s in points to be able to win the games. And in a lot of cases, they were. They got up to number 1 in the country, and it was working for much of the year. But it finally caught up with them. The defense has to be able to not allow those big plays. If they can contain the big plays and just be able to keep it in between the lines, that'll definitely be big for them, but they can't let it go over the top.
No. Well, let's move over to the Eastern Division. As we all know, Tennessee's getting better, but the team I want to talk about right now is the Georgia Bulldogs. Of course, last year we all know what happened in South Carolina. They were picked to win the East. Their first game against Texas A&M at Williams-Brice Stadium, they got blown out of the stadium, did they not? And so that kind of dominoed effect in their season. But Mark Richt has been in this position before, but it seems every year there's a team or two that they seem to lose to that they shouldn't. They go and they dominate Missouri at Missouri, but then the following week they lose to Florida, a Florida team that hadn't really been able to run the ball at all season, but then they run the ball down their throats. What does Mark Richt have to do to get this Georgia fan base to actually believe, okay, we can win, and we can actually make a run to the college football playoff this year?
Yeah, Florida team, they threw 6 passes the entire game, too. So one-dimensional team and still just got blown away. One of the most inexcusable losses that you could see out of the program for sure. Now, how can they get to the playoff? How can they contend in the East? Well, number one, they've got to win the games they're supposed to win. I mean, games this year against South Carolina, I think, will be better, but they've got to win that game. Games this year against Florida, they've got to win that game. Now, big games for them for sure. Hosting Alabama, that's huge.
Yeah.
At Tennessee the very next week, that's probably one of the toughest back-to-back weeks stretches on their schedule by far. Got to play Auburn later in the year, Georgia Tech, and they have such a weak non-conference schedule outside of Georgia Tech that they really need that Georgia Tech win late in the year. So, I mean, I think as long as they get consistent play from their quarterback, which we still don't know who it's going to be, Fatone Balta, Bryce Ramsey, or Grayson Lambert, transfer from Virginia, Nick Chubb is going to do his thing. Receivers are very talented, Scott Wesley and Malcolm Mitchell. The defense is back. New offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer coming in to lead that offense as well. So I think as long as they can get good, consistent play from the quarterback position, doesn't make mistakes, manages the game, I think Georgia will have a good shot with Nick Chubb. No injuries as well. It's a huge factor in the season for anybody.
Yeah, exactly. It plays a big factor for all the teams that we're talking about. Nick Chubb is a big reason. I had Georgia winning the East as well. I think with what Jeremy Pruitt, his second year into this defense is going to be a lot better. And then, of course, you bring in Schottenheimer, who's had that experience. And this running game, to me, whoever the quarterback is, all they have to do is just maintain the offense. You're basically it's just maintenance. Everything else will take care of itself. Play action, as long as you can sell the play action, be accurate when you throw, I think Georgia's going to be fine there. I think a team that really is intriguing to me is Tennessee, and I'll go a little step further. Joshua Dobbs, end of the year at 4-1, leading Tennessee into the bowl game, beating Iowa comfortably. But I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon yet. I think that they still have a lot of improving to do, especially the offensive line. An offensive line that gave up 59 sacks last year, which was an all-time, they were last in the conference, I believe, in giving up sacks. What does this team have to, what does Butch Jones and his staff have to do to maybe get to that 8-9 win mark this year if they're going to try to at least win the East?
Well, they got to take advantage of the fact that they have Georgia at home this year. I know that's going to be obviously a very tough game, but they've played Georgia so close the last several years. Georgia's found a way to escape. But Tennessee has gained experience. They're a little bit older. I still feel like 2016 is really going to be the year that they really hit the ground running for a chance, at a really huge year. But I really feel like they have a shot at 8-9 wins this year because you have a chance at a huge statement game against Oklahoma at home in week 2. I mean, if they can win that game, that sets the tone for the entire year. That gets the fans buzzing. That gets the whole program buzzing that they're finally back to the point and the prominence that they're used to being at.
Sure.
So as long as they can continue to improve, and now that they're a year older, I think they're going to be just fine.
Now down a little bit more farther south, Florida Gators have a new coach, Jim McElwain. You seem to be pretty high on Jim McElwain so far,
yes.
But here's the deal, and I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can. This might be the year where Florida fans need to kind of hold back a little bit of having a great year. You've got an offense that's going to struggle mightily. DeMarcus Robertson, the wide receiver, is the only wide receiver that returns. The other ones are unknown. You lose a running back, Trayon Harris. Everybody thought he might be the starter, but let's not forget freshman Will Grier, who's in the talk. Defensively, they're going to be stout. You do lose Dante Fowler, but you return one of the best cornerbacks in the country, and Hargraves is going to be a big-time player. What do you think the expectations should be for this Florida Gator football team this year?
I mean, I do think Florida can make it back to a bowl. I definitely think they'll win 6-7 games. I do feel that with some of the games that they should be able to win, like over a Vandy, over a Kentucky. Well, possibly, because we'll talk more about them. But I think the reason why I'm so high on Muschamp, number one, I think the defense will be a big reason why they carries them to a bowl. The reason why I'm so high, not on Muschamp, but on McElwain, He came into the program late in the recruiting period, and they were in the triple digits, mind you. I mean, that's insane for a Florida program that's used to being recruiting in the top 10. In the triple digits, and McElwain got him all the way up into the top 25 in a span of 3-4 weeks. He was able to get several 5- and 4-star players into the program, and that's huge. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do now for the next class, 2016, because if he can do that in a short time, in a very short span, just think what he can do, Florida fans, in a full year. So I definitely, not this year. Florida fans don't expect a huge year this year, but they're definitely going to get back there.
Yeah, and I mean, good point. Good credit to your point. I just think for me, anybody, I'm not trying to say anybody can recruit to Florida, but that's a very rich state.
Right.
I'm interested to see how he coaches his football team and how they respond to him, especially when they face adversity. And one more team we'll talk about a little bit is South Carolina and Kentucky, two teams who both started the year relatively well, but then fell off the map. Even after the loss to Texas A&M, South Carolina was able to rebound against Georgia. Kentucky, they lost to Florida, but they ended up 4-1 or 5-1, and then lost 5 straight to where they didn't get to a bowl game. But South Carolina was able to win last year. Talk a little bit about Bob Stoops. What does he have to do to get them to a bowl game? I think that's about where my expectations would be, right?
Yeah, I picked that on the other night on Periscope when we were doing a broadcast. I think Mike Stoops is going to lead this Kentucky team to a bowl game. They got so close last year. And like we talked about, that Florida game could be a toss-up this year. They get them, I believe, up in Lexington this year, almost beating them in Gainesville a year ago. I honestly think Kentucky, bringing back Patrick Tolles at quarterback, I believe it's JoJo Kemp at running back. Mm-hmm. They definitely have a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. So I definitely think they're going to be, they're not going to be as much of a pushover as most people might think. And I do feel like they're going to get into the bowl season.
Another thing to keep in mind, Kentucky played 8 straight games last year before they even had an off week. That's going to play into a major effect. Alabama has that this year. I believe another team, I apologize, I can't tell off the top of my head, but I believe another team has that as well. Finally, does the SEC have a team that's a playoff contender?
Oh yeah, I believe they have 2, maybe 3. I think for sure Alabama and Auburn automatically are playoff contenders. The preseason top 5, I definitely think they're going to be right there in the mix, and they're going to battle it out for the Western Division. And I think one maybe would be Georgia, but it really just depends on what kind of play they get from the quarterback position, and if that defense can continue to improve under Jeremy Pruitt. But for sure, Alabama and Auburn, maybe Georgia.
Well, you've heard it here, folks. We are back, and we're really excited for a fun and exciting season. We hope you guys are too. Again, we're going to be on Periscope as well. Periscope is connected to Twitter or your phone number, whatever one you want to put on there. You can follow us on Twitter at CFB Rundown. You can see us on Periscope as well every morning and every night. So please join us there as we will do live broadcasts, breaking news as it comes along. For Glenn Shaw and Jeremy Smith, you are watching College Football Rundown. Have a great evening, everybody.